So wonderful. So it's Friday the 13th of May 2016. I'm here in Boston on the east coast of the United States, and I've got two amazing doctors here, Dr. Torous and Dr. Sandoval.
Correct.
And we are in a mental health hospital here, right?
We're in the Massachusetts Mental Health Center, which is affiliated with Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. Exactly.
Okay, great. So we've been discussing a very hot topic which everybody wants to know about, digital phenotypes. Lots of people interested in what can be captured from, watches, from phones, potentially from images that people take, passive monitoring. Now, I know that, you guys have started some very, very innovative work at the edge in terms of research. Can you tell us a bit more about what you're doing here, please?
So I think we're doing some exciting research, and I said, I completely agree with you. There's a lot of potential on what we can capture with technology. I think between watches, sensors, different things we wear on our wrists, or different technologies, we can capture so much information. The real question now is how do we put it together in a way that is clinically valid and useful? I think there's an assumption that just because you can capture data means that it's valuable, it's clinically useful, it's going to make a difference. And I think we know just from our ordinary life, there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of things that don't matter. And I think the next step for the medical field is to really say, what's signal, what's noise, what's useful,
yes,
what's not useful. We know we can collect it all. This is no longer a technical problem. This is now a clinical. So Luis and I are working on a pretty exciting study, capturing a lot of this information from subjects' phones, and I said then working with the Harvard School of Public Health, who developed a smartphone app. This is the J.P. O'Nella lab, to really figure out how does this data make sense in terms of clinically and what the data means. So Luis can probably tell us a little bit more about the study.
And also, just to one important point I'd like people to know about is the fact that this is open source, right?
It is an open source.
And so one of the challenges as well from a validation perspective is if I use a commercial app or a sensor from 2 years ago and I want to reproduce results, and that version are no longer available, etc. Or one of the other big issues I see is that many patients complain they would like to be able to participate in research which is going to be using smartphones and apps and sensors, but often a lot of that is being done with iPhones, right, and Apple Watches. And most people don't have an iPhone around the world, right?
Well, you'll be surprised. Maybe they don't have the iPhone, but a lot of people now, and this is in your field in mental health, we were surprised that all of them, or the majority of them, have smartphones. And we never thought about that. I am a clinician and I interact with patients every day, and I was surprised that, a couple of my patients said, "Doctor, are you aware of this app?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, with this app, I was able to learn skills that probably institutions don't have the clinicians to train, to train the patients. Institutions, because of the healthcare insurance, they don't cover that. But the patients are getting savvy, and they're using the technology to improve the mental health. And also that I wanted to be clear in this is, yes, this is an open source, and we are a scientific community. So what we really want is to validate these all these data, not only in the scientific way, but also what does that mean for the patient? Why as a clinician I want to ask a patient to answer 127 questions, for example? What's the meaning for them? As a scientist, we can speculate and say, this is the meaning, these are the symptoms, and we can predict this. But if the patient doesn't see the value, then I think it will be a clinical failure. And one of the things that we're doing, this team with Dr. Torous, Dr. Kashavan, myself, and JP. First of all, it's a multidisciplinary team: psychiatry, biostats, psychology, with expertise in cognitive remediation, schizophrenia, brain plasticity, human-computer interaction, digital psychiatry, etc., etc. So that's one thing. And when we combine these efforts, we're hoping, because this is science, we're hoping that at one point not only we'll be able to predict a couple of the symptoms or the syndromes, but also having a clinical meaning for the patients. Did that make
Yeah.
sense?
So, and what are the timelines? I mean, when do you hope to have some results from this research?
Well, we already started the project 3 weeks ago, I believe, and we're hoping to. This is a pilot study, and we're hoping to recruit 20 participants by the end of this year. No, the design is about giving the app free for them, of course, and they have to use it. They have to answer questions. A really brief questionnaire. They will take no more than 3-4 seconds. We tested ourselves. That's important.
Okay.
No, it's nothing like, oh, you tested and tell me how was it. No. We tested ourselves, and we make some changes, and we also talk to some of the patients. Said, is that feasible to answer the questions? Every other day, and also we ask them to read a passage. So we can capture the tone and hopefully kind of analyze the speech pattern, so which is also associated with mood and cognition and et cetera. So in addition to that, we're collecting a lot of passive data. Dr. Torous can talk about that, but from the clinical point of view, we're hoping to have a more dynamic picture of their symptoms in a period of 4 or 5 months.
Okay, and in particular, understanding what's happening to them in between visits, what they're exposed
Correct.
to. Right. I mean, that's the gap even in electronic health records. We don't know what happens in between the visits.
Yeah, as you know, I mean, the recommended a physical exam is once a year, but that happened to me. Murphy's Law. One day I went to the doctor, everything was okay, and the next day I broke my leg, and then I need to wait. Well, I didn't need to wait another 364 days, but there's a lot of things that happen in a year, even in a week.
Even the information you consume, which may make you choose a lifestyle or make a choice which could impact your health. And we need to know what information you've been consuming, and then what relationship that has with your outcomes.
And in the world of psychiatry, we work with the mind, we work with the thoughts, we work with emotions. So there is a tremendous fluctuation.
Yes.
So I don't think it's fair, and this is one of the hypotheses, right? As Dr. Torous proved it in one of his papers, I don't think it's fair to wait 1 week or 2 weeks to ask for symptoms, because there's a lot of things happening in a week or 2 weeks. Let's pick a depression case. Sometimes you will be really low, and then normal, and then low, or even lower, and then normal, and then high. But then at the end of the week, he said, well, that score looks the same. Maybe quantitatively, but qualitatively, and for the perspective of the patient, that's a huge difference. That was the difference between, should I take more medication? Should I see my psychiatrist, my psychologist? Should I call my mom? Should I go to the hospital? Etc. No, so I think this what we're doing here in this collaboration hopefully will bring closer the gap between the clinicians understanding of the patients and the patients understanding their illness, and also connecting more with the healthcare system.
Okay, great. Thank you. Dr. Torous, do you want to tell us a bit more about the data that you're collecting?
So we're collecting passive data, so data that your phone needs to be a phone. So your phone has some idea of where you may be, the number of calls you may be making, text messages. We're very careful to not collect any personal information, to anonymize everything, to hash all identifiers. So we're also very careful to make sure all the data is encrypted as soon as it goes onto the phone, and then encrypted when it's transmitted again to a secure server. So I think, considering that this is health data, you really have to keep privacy and security at the forefront. And I said that partially makes it more expensive to develop these tools. It can make it a little harder to work with them. But I think you have to at least begin with the privacy and security foundation. I said, and the app was developed by J.P. London School of Public Health and his lab group, and I think it's just tremendous to focus on privacy and security that the app has. So I said we can capture a lot of different passive data streams, and again, I think everyone else may have different theories on what certain streams may mean. Does it mean that perhaps if you're making more calls that reflect something? Does it mean if you're texting more or less that means something? And I said, truthfully, we don't know. I think we have to let the data tell us what it shows. We have to ask patients in this study, we're learning from you. You're the patients, you're using it. And I said, we'll learn what it says. I think how we all use our phones differently. We all relate to technology differently. I think that's important in making sure we do these studies in clinical populations, and the populations are actually going to be using it. I said some of us, probably all at the table, we love technology, we get very excited by it, but probably the way that we use technology is very different than the way other folks use technology. So I think it's important in this study that we're making sure these are patients, now research subjects that we know have the experience of the illness, that live with the illness, and I said that I think their voice will really shine through.
Yeah, one of the part of the design of the study is that we're collecting data. We're also checking with the patients, not only clinically but also follow up with them and see how they interacting, do they like it or not. And we're planning that along the study, give this app to a group of patients outside of the study, so they can play with it, criticize it, because they are the experts.
Yes,
This consumer report, I believe, is called. It's made with patients who struggle with this. So if they can be part of this and say, you have to change the color because patients with schizophrenia hate blue.
Yes.
That's what we want.
Okay.
We wanted to be, create these interventions for them, not only collecting symptoms for us. I think that this part is crucial in this team, and we're open to modify things according to their needs.
And then finally, with regard to the future and what you'd like to do, if, for example, a startup or some technological or an engineer is listening to this and thinking, okay, I'm building things and I don't necessarily know, I'm looking for applications which impact health. In mental health and looking at digital technologies, what's the biggest problem for either you as a physician or the patients you see that you think, okay, if somebody could develop a sensor that could do this, or if somebody could develop an app that could do this, is there anything, a really big headache you see every day with your patients? You say, I'd really like to be able to do this and nobody's invented it yet. Is there something that comes to mind immediately? It can be really simple. It doesn't even need to be a really big thing, but
I think it's hard for me to talk about the technology.
Well, in terms of the problems.
But I think that the biggest problem that I see is fear.
What do you mean by fear?
Fear of interacting with technology. Fear of the doctors being, open and say, yeah, technology can help us, at least in mental health. Or the
so
fear.
Is that fear from the patient?
I think for both.
That actually, so in terms of then, if the solution might be, any technology that people develop has to be really easy to use.
Has to be easy to use and give the patient that they can trust that.
Okay.
Because
trust.
at the end, they're sharing emotions, they're sharing the most intimate thoughts, and you don't want that to be global.
Right.
No, you want it to be personal. You want it to be, but at the same time relatable. So that's sensitive information. I think that it's a little bit missing. So that's why we can create like the most secure, software, encrypted, etc. But at the same time, it has to be friendly.
Yes.
It has to be appealing.
Okay.
It has
and
to be sensitive.
Okay.
It has to be sensitive to the patient.
Okay.
So that's kind of like my vision currently. Hopefully we'll change that in the future, and hopefully this team can help to contribute to change that.
I think I would agree with Luis and say we have a lot of technology. It can do a lot of wonderful things.
Yes.
But we need to make technology that's built with patients' input, patients' perspective, and then clinically validated.
Correct.
I think if we don't go down that path, we're going to have a lot of technology that's not useful and doesn't serve a purpose. So I think the question now is not, can I build it? It's how do I build it with the patients in mind, with the clinicians in mind, with the healthcare system in mind.
That's great. Dr. Sandoval, Dr. Torous, thank you for your time today.
No, thank you so much.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.